Good day and welcome to our next webinar in the series of webinars that we have been hosting. So the solution that we're going to cover today is WINNOW, which is a solution for automatic content classification. My name is Dipanshu and I'm representing the sales team of Interra. With me, I have Vibhas, who is the product expert and who will be taking us through the product demo and presentation today for WINNOW. But before we jump into the product presentation and demo, let me give you a very brief high-level interview of InterraSystems and all our solutions. So as you can see from the slide that the solutions cover the entire workflow and are solving different problems in various stages of the content value chain, be it preparation, delivery, or debugging. So at the preparation stage for VOD content, we have Baton, which is our file-based automated QC solution, and it can be used for checking the quality of assets. It has exhaustive checks like baseband, format, almost 100 audio-video quality checks, and also dedicated ABR checks for the ABR content. It detects issues which can cause problems later on in the workflow, let's say at the content delivery stage. Next, we have Orion and Orion OTT, which are real-time monitoring solutions for the assurance of high-quality linear and OTT streams. So it works both for live and VOD content. Both these solutions look at all aspects of streams, including ABR manifests, closed captions, ad insertions, and are also fully supported for cloud environments. In fact, the solutions that you see on screen, including WINNOW that we're going to discuss today, they are all supported on cloud environments. Next in the Orion family is Orion Central Manager that provides an aggregated or a bird's eye view of the entire Orion and Orion OTT deployments for an organization. Now, how this helps is that since the data is presented in a stage-wise manner, it becomes important from a root cause analysis perspective, because the problems which are appearing at, let's say, at the end device level might have originated earlier in the workflow. So that's how the root cause analysis becomes important in fault isolation and later on in the correction of that particular fault. Next, we have our offerings which are based on our artificial intelligence and machine learning based engines. And these can really help organizations perform certain tasks which are predominantly being done manually in the industry. So these can be done in an automated way with the help of these solutions. So these solutions can bring in cost, effort, and time savings, especially when you consider the volume of content to be high. First among these is lip sync, which detects the audio and video sync errors. So if there is an active speaker, but the audio is either lagging or leading the video, so lip sync can detect those kind of errors. Next is Captions, which can automate the whole workflow associated with captions, be it caption generation, their time codes, and then the QC of those captions, reviewing, and also the correction. So that can be performed by Captions. And next is WINNOW, which we're going to cover today in detail, which is for automatic content classification, and it covers identifying cases like explicit scenes, strong language, violence, and then these reports can later on be used by other teams for editing, etc. And finally, for the debugging part, we have Vega, which is an offline analysis tool. Now it goes to the frame and then pixel level and helps you find out issues with various aspects of audio and video. And it is capable of supporting all the popular industry formats on the video side, be it HEVC, H.264, AV1, and also on the audio side, including the ABR related formats like MPEG- and HLS, among others. So in the end, I would like to say that video quality these days is very crucial from a monetization perspective, and it's important to drive customer satisfaction and retention. So that's why in all our products, we have focused on features that can help address the quality-related issues and improve the productivity for organizations. As a closing remark, again, I would like to reiterate that our customers have been successfully deploying all these solutions on cloud environments. Now with this, I would like to hand over to Vibhas to continue with the details of the product. And during the course of the presentation, if you have any questions, please feel free to post them through the Q&A section available at the bottom of your screen, and we'll try to take them all at the end. Vibhas, over to you.
Thanks, Dipanshu. Hi, my name is Vibhas. So in the next half an hour, I'm going to talk about our content classification tool called WINNOW. Now, the content classification and censorship has been part of the media workflow since the very beginning of the broadcast. Checking for censorship, content ratings, legal compliances, and identifying and marking specific scenes where a particular celebrity or an object is present are some of the very, very common examples of such workflow. In many cases, such activities are merged with the quality checking activities, but for others, there are separate teams like censorship or legal review who would do such activities. Now, with the advancement of the media processing and the computer vision nowadays, most of the content quality checking workflows can be automated. And as you know, Interra has been into the forefront of R&D of the image processing and video quality checks, primarily focused on solving the content quality area. And Interra Baton has been deployed in almost all major Tier 1 and Tier 2 customers across the globe. Now, while Baton solved one of the core issue of automating the content quality checks through computer algorithms, the primary focus of such a tool, as you know, that is to identify the defects such as dropout, pixelation, freeze, audio silence, etc. Such algorithms are neither required to identify what is actually inside the content, nor it can train itself to recognize objects or scenes of interest automatically. Detecting such underlying scenes, object, and specifically recognizing what is there into the content and different censorship requirements automatically through software requires massive processing of the data, complex algorithms, and a lot of training data to be fed to the training model. Now, when Interra started the AI and ML research a couple of years ago, we took up the challenge of using the latest and machine learning innovations to specifically content classifications. We also parallelly started working with a couple of our key customers to help them and categorize their contents. So over the years, we have been modifying our AI and ML models and training it with a lot of data. And finally, we are here with a new and revamped version of the WINNOW. Now, what is WINNOW? I mean, again, with the Interra tradition, we only provide the software and you can use your own hardware. So it's a completely software-based tool which can automatically level and classify your content. And so it classifies all the audio video content. It could be explicit scenes, it could be violence, it could be audio, beep, etc. And all the technologies that I'm going to showcase today builds on Interra's expertise in analyzing and understanding the content. So it's our own algorithm, and it can be supported on variety of applications, both for on-prem as well as the cloud usage. And you can definitely customize your content workflow, because you might have content coming in online, you might have content coming in on-premise, and every content review workflow has its own requirement. So WINNOW is capable of catering to almost all variety of content classification workflow that you might have. Some of the example workflow could be explicit content detection and violent content detection. So these are primary requirement for censorship for many countries, specifically in the Asia Pacific and Middle East. Some other countries require health advisory warnings to be done, like if in a movie, if you have alcohol or smoking scenes are shown, then you need to provide a statutory warning saying that alcohol consumption is injurious to health. Something. Now, for the content suppliers, how do they automatically identify such scenes? So in those cases, again, WINNOW can come to rescue and can automatically identify and detect such scenes in a movie or in a clip. You can also use WINNOW for, let's say, strong language detection, logo identification, celebrity identification, etc. So it's a tool. You can use it in a limitless ways. It depends on how and what are your requirements. Typically, what is the usage model? So like any other media workflow, you install WINNOW on-prem or on cloud, and then you can get the media to the system either using a smart folder, or you can drop the files manually. And then in the WINNOW, you define what are the checks or classification schemes that you want to follow. Let's say I want explicit content detection. Somebody might say I want ad classification. Somebody say no, I want detection of the gun in the content. So you define it, and WINNOW will give you consolidated results. You get XML or JSON results. You get PDF report. You have a REST API which can automatically integrate and send the data to you. And it's a completely flexible tool. If you want your content to pass through WINNOW and you want to get kind of all the detection to be done simultaneously, that is also possible. And Baton and WINNOW have a very tight integration. So even from Baton interface, you can register WINNOW, and while Baton is processing its job parallelly, the same file can be processed in the WINNOW for the content classification. So in many companies, they have a workflow that once the QC is done, then they also want to send the content to the censorship. So with the Baton and WINNOW integration, so that can be achieved very, very easily. So while Baton does the QC, the WINNOW will do the content classification and other censorship jobs. Well, I mean, Baton is our tool, but you can integrate pretty much with all other tools because we have a very rich API support, which you can integrate with any other MAM or content media workflow solutions. Now, this is very important. Like, what are the categories of problem that you can solve using WINNOW? So, number one is a content classification. Like for one of our customers wanted that they had a massive storage of different commercials, and they wanted to classify that how I want to classify whether the data is in financial services or the advertisement is for health or lottery. So content classification definitely is one of the criteria. But the violent content, again, this is more of censorship requirement, and many countries require that to be done. So if the media has arms, flight, explosion, uniformed personnel, so that can be done. Then explicit content detection is definitely one of our focus area. So you can check for nudity, the sexual situations, undergarments, body part. And both with the explosion of the OTT like Amazon, iTunes, Netflix, when you supply them, at least they have a strict regulation on what can be there. So can also come to your rescue if you are content suppliers to the OTT content suppliers. Now, health advisory is again a very critical factor. Like if you want detection of alcohol, smoking, tobacco, cigar or drugs to be detected in the scenes. So WINNOW can exactly identify and mark you the objects in the scene. You might also use this for generic scenes, like you identify if there are fireworks, gambling scenes into the movie. And on the audio side, again, we have a very strong support of audio detection. So WINNOW would analyze all the audio speech, and then you can detect strong language, keywords, etc. in the audio. There are other interesting applications of WINNOW as well, like lot of commercial companies, they wanted to detect that in a maybe 1 hour movie, how much of their logo are detected and shown in a movie or in a commercial. So you can register a logo, and WINNOW can tell you exactly how many times it appeared, what percent of the content, and how much time it was shown into the movie or in a scene. Similarly, you can also do the celebrity identification. I mean, it could be celebrity, it could be political figures, and there are a lot of uses, like you can in a 1 hour since you might want to detect how much a personality appeared for how much times. Now, with WINNOW, I think another very, very critical factor that WINNOW is going to solve is, your content automation. Now, as I mentioned, WINNOW would detect some of the content classification, or it will identify some of the sins into the media. But what to do? I mean, you definitely wanted a workflow to be created so that once WINNOW detects something, then you can take actions. Let's say if there is, let's say, gun in the file, you might want to review it for maybe legal review, or you might want to see why it is there. Now, WINNOW has a workflow integration where you can very nicely create your own workflow so that you can move the content according to this. So this is one example of review workflow where after the WINNOW, you can operator can mark that for legal review, or maybe he can automatically send it for on air, or maybe can reject. So we'll cover some of these when I'm showing the actual product demo. And another very, very important slide here, that the WINNOW is completely software, and it can be installed on any standard on-prem devices, on-prem machines. And only requirement is that you need to have a graphics card. So we recommend NVIDIA GeForce 1080i or equivalent graphics card. And as I mentioned, it can be installed both on-prem as well as in a cloud-based setup. I'll quickly spend a minute on the product roadmap. I think as you understand that products with any artificial and machine learning algorithm would require a lot of the training to be done. And we also have a aggressive roadmap to cater. We are getting a lot of requests from different customers to support a variety of objects and content classification categories. So we are definitely going to support a lot of them, and we have a very big R&D team working on that. We are also working on some of those security and hazards related stuff like gunshot, blood, cartridge, etc. And we are also kind of adding more checks on the audio event detection so that we can sync it with the audio. And definitely there are a massive request from the sports industry, creation of the automated trailer, identification of the goals automatically and stuff. So our R&D is kind of heavily loaded with a lot of very interesting stuff that are coming in. And I'll discuss some of those at the end. We have R&D panelists also here, so I'll ask them to do. So if you have any questions, you can definitely type in the Q&A. Let me quickly go to the product demo and take you through interface. So as I mentioned earlier, this is a completely software-based tool, and you can automatically once you install, you can completely browse it from the interface. So let me quickly take you through different menu options. So once you've installed, I think the first thing that you needed to go and start a content location. So WINNOW can probably take care of almost all content location. If it is a shared location, you can mount it on the Linux box, and then you can use it. You can use FTP, S3 as your locations. And then once the quantity location is registered, you can pretty much ready to go. And you can either submit the files manually. Let's say I can select a couple of files, or we have an option called Smart Folder, where you can, like any other watch folders in the media industry, you can decide incoming folder where you can drop any files, and then WINNOW will automatically detect the file and run the clips. The schemes are very important, as I mentioned at the beginning, that this is where you define what are the, let's say, classification categories that you wanted to detect, like if you wanted an explicit content to be detected, generic sins to be detected, violent content to be detected. And we have detailed categories. I'll come back to that little later in details. Now the board, as I mentioned, WINNOW is going to help you also with the automating of your content classification workflow. So here you can see in each stage I have a couple of files, and you can move the files automatically or manually through this interface. And the most important, I think, menu item would be the task. So this is where whenever you submit any job, the file should be coming in here. And it has multiple options, the names, type of detection. You can see that for each file, you get a graphical a notification that how many, let's say, this file has gambling, one scene, or this has alcohol. So you get a detection which scheme that you have seen, what time you started, which workflow, and whether this file is in operator review or other stuff. Now let me go to open a file for you so that you can quickly see how the reports look like. So I have a file which is verified, and let me see what scheme that I wanted. So I enabled, let's say, health advisory. So I wanted to detect alcohol, smoking, and other tobacco products to be done. So let me see how WINNOW detect that. So the moment you open a file, so at the right side, you can very quickly see that all the timeline of the objects that it has identified. So, and in the left, you can see both two tabs, one of the frames, another would be shots. So in the frames, it would identify all the frames, like, it would mark that in a red block, and you can see that this is my alcohol and this is the bottle I can see. Similarly, you can see that these are the identified objects, and these are okay generic since it does not have any health advisory. Again, it came back saying that you have all these whiskey bottles that it had detected. Now we also have a very advanced scene change detection, so that if you want to go to a shot, like I want to see how long the shot was. So in the shot screen, it would identify the shot or the scene where that object is detected. Similarly, I can go and browse it here. But on the right, you can, let's say, you can take it to any location, and it would identify the object when it is there. So you can very quickly understand which scene or shots that is represented to. Then I go to the timeline. This is another very, very important report section. So what it does, like you can see that alcohol has been detected from let's say 0 to about 5 seconds. And it would just, if you take your cursor there, it will identify the object in the red block. You can exactly see that, the bottle has been marked, and on the right side, you can see that what is detected alcohol, what is the confidence score. What is confidence score? Like for any AI and ML based algorithm, when it detects something, it would also give you a confidence score that how, based on the algorithm, how confident that this could be the same object. So higher score, meaning that it's absolutely right, that so it's like 0.99, it's like highest score. So it definitely. And in the timeline, I also like to add another point that you can see that this is a bottle which is from the graphics. Now these alcohol drinks, it's very interesting that, with a very tiny letters, it has detected that this has a vodka written somewhere in that. It's a text. And if I go to the audio section, it's saying that, it has detected the audio word in the audio. So this explains that our algorithm, what we call is multi-model. That means if you want any health category like alcohol, cigarettes to be detected, not only our algorithm will depend on visual recognition. It's a combination of visual, text, audio, and if you have a subtitle data. So we analyze all the models and then we combine and correlate each model, and the more correlation happens, it's better detection. So that's why it's very accurate detection that we do. Now the summary, it's very quick. You can quickly see that what are the task ID that you have, what are the workflow that you are going to use. Then whether you have the alcohol drinks, how many count that was there here. Then alcohol drinks, how many counts that that appeared here. And then you can also see what time it's scheduled, what time it appeared, etc. Now detailed, this screen will take you to all the detection individually with confidence scores and description. So you can, what is the start and end time frame. You can also kind of look at bigger thumbnail to quickly identify that how it looks like. So as you can see, like this has detected the text vodka to be there as part of the text detection. And for some of the, let's say audio, so if I go to the audio timeline, so you can see that the word vodka detected between this to this time frame. So we do have an inbuilt text to space detection. So if you want to convert the English text to speech in a assertive format, we can also automate the workflow. Now, once the file has been verified, definitely you wanted to get take some actions. Now, what actions you want to take? So multiple options are available. You can play the file using a BMP, Better Media Player. By the way, with WINNOW also we provide free Better Media Player as a default license. You can play the files into the player. You can use a PDF report. We have very nice PDF reports. So you can simply open the PDF report and so that you can send it to the content subreddits, or maybe send it to keep it for your records. So you have a very nice interface, and you can see both visual and audio clue, whatever that we have. It's very nicely presented. We also have XML Json report that are available. Now let me also just open that in Media Player. So now once you click on the Media Player, then you are going to see this alcohol file to be opened in the Media Player. Again, a Media Player is the best player that is available in the market. And in the left, you can see all the kind of options. And if I go to the timeline, you can see that where the alcohol appears, the vodka appears, whiskey, scotch, and stuff. So I can simply go to a desired location, and it would identify and mark the area where it is present. So you can see that it would identify and mark the area. So you can even go to the location where it is there. Well, it's a generic utility. You can go frame by frame. You can particularly, we also have an interesting option that you can go and jump to a specific thumbnail. And other options, standard media player options, like you can look at RGB color palette, vectorscope. You can also look at the audio data and identify the portion which specifies. So you can probably see. So you can probably hear the word whiskey. So again, you can definitely review that content workflow here. Now, another thing that I just want to mention that in many cases, let's say you wanted that maybe this alcohol drink is kind of okay, I can ignore. So we have an option, or maybe, I mean, this is not getting detected correctly. So we have an integrated option to mark something which you do not want to be part of the report. So you can quickly do that. Now let me go to the boards. Now let's say you have the file verified. Now what do you want to do? Like let's say now if you go to the boards, so this is a kind of what you call information board where you list all the files which have been verified or part of this content review workflow. And you can decide how your workflow to be done. So if I go to the setup and the workflow, here you can create your own workflow. So we have a very nice interface where you can give the own workflow. And if you wanted the detection to be done, let's say this is a sample workflow where WINNOW detected, then it takes. So if I just make it a little bigger. So WINNOW would detect it and then it would mark it for the review. And after the review has been done, you can mark it for on air or you can mark it for the quality. So this is, you can create definitely multiple workflows and you can create complex workflows here. So like this is a bit complex workflow here. You have a WINNOW, then operator review, then it goes to the legal review. And if everything okay, it goes to the ready to air or it just goes for the rejection. Now, once you define the workflow and the jobs have been finished, you can go to the board state, and then you can, let's say, just move that set of files. Let's say you can send it for legal review. You can send this from, let's say, this area, and you can look at what was the actual detection. Like this is where I wanted to detect alcohol in the same. So this is separate stuff. Or maybe if you want to detect a syringe as part of the health hazards, you can do that. So board will give you a consolidated view of all the files and the workflow needs. You can very quickly define what are the actions pending and who is supposed to take the action. It's a consolidated view. Let me now go to the schemes where this is the important section where we define all the parameters and the classification categories that you need to do. And the best part for WINNOW is that it's very nicely presented. So these are the categories that you can do. Let's say I wanted content classification to be done as part of the ad classification. You can mark that what are the categories that you wanted. That let's say you have a massive amount of storage content or archived content. You want to identify whether those are lottery, maybe law services, ad, health services, etc. So these are part of content classification workflow. Now the explicit content is definitely extremely popular and would be useful for a lot of the Asia Pacific, Middle East countries. So there you can, in all the cases, it's pretty simple. You could go to the edit and maybe you can disable or enable some of the content. Let's say in content, and you can also kind of go and identify that what are the explicit content categories I wanted to detect. Let's say adult product or maybe some of the body parts, etc. So it's extremely, and by default we take care of major explicit categories. But if you want to detect some more, or if you want to disable some of the existing categories, that option is there. You can also detect some of the undergarments, identify some of the body parts, etc. All very easily configurable. You can also, detect generic scenes, whether you are in casino or firework, let's say in gambling. And as part of that, you can detect some of the words. Like let's say I want to detect a gambling scene, and you can also detect specific words, maybe gambling or maybe some other words that you want to add, so that in addition to our existing, algorithm, WINNOW will also use these specific words to identify that if this specific text appears, then it would also internally use that portion to identify and check whether that is relevant for the specific sensor. Now, under health category, also multiple subcategories. You can detect alcohol, and here you can detect different types. Smoking, tobacco products, drugs, etc. And we are definitely adding a lot more into these products. Violent is definitely one of the extremely important category. You can detect gun, tank, sword, bow, and knife, X. And if you think that maybe knife is not critical, X is not critical for you, disable it. So you don't need detect those. Similarly, you can detect for fight, explosion, uniformed professionals, etc. And in terms of violence detection, also there are many sample files that we have, and let's say, so it can automatically detect the scenes in the gun, and it's extremely useful tool. So that this is explosion, and then another gun. So this can also be used as such applications. And word classification, as I mentioned, WINNOW has a very powerful audio scanning algorithm, and we detect all the audio, identify what the persons are going to say and what could be meaning, and then we also convert that to a kind of formally text file, so in case you wanted that to be outputted. Now, in the other categories, we also have very interesting checks like celebrity identification, logo identification. For celebrity identification, we essentially need to provide a couple of images, and similarly for logo. So in the setup, you can go to, let's say, celebrity list, and you can add a bunch of actors or and for each celebrity detection, we typically recommend that at least you give 5 to 6 images from different angles, different light levels in the dress, so that the algorithm performs much better with multiple images. So you can do that. Similarly, for logo, this is very interesting that you can also give some of the logos to WINNOW, and if that logo exists even on a running object or maybe moving object or somewhere, it will automatically detect those logo, which is extremely interesting application that people use. So, like for logo detection, like I can show you some example that somewhere in the window there is an HSBC logo, and I have shown you, like earlier I registered the HSBC as a logo, it has detected it here. Similarly, somewhere in the cab there is a ad for the Nissan, and since I inserted the Nissan as part of the logo marking, so it has been able to detect that. And there are a lot more applications that you can use. So with that, I think I'm pretty sure that it gives you a kind of top-level view of what WINNOW can do for you. And as I mentioned, it's an extremely powerful application. It will depend on your imagination and your workflow identification, how this can be used. We provide complete set of APIs, so that if you want WINNOW to pass all your movies, identify the objects, and send you a JSON file, so that you can even update your MAM database, that workflow can also be used. So with that, let me stop here, and I'm seeing a lot of questions. So we have about 20 minutes, so we'll take as much as questions as possible. You can type in the questions at the Q&A section. So now with that, I'll hand it over to Dipanshu, so that he can moderate the questions.
Thanks a lot, Vivas. Thank you for the detailed session on WINNOW. So now we can start with the questions. I can see that there are quite a few. So to start with, there are a couple of questions on the integration capabilities with Bayton and also third-party tools like Aspera Orchestrator. So WINNOW has extensive APIs available. It provides REST APIs, so it's integrated with Bayton plus integration with a third-party tool like Aspera. It is also possible, so that should not be a challenge. Okay, so Bibhas, the next question is, what is the dictionary WINNOW uses for course language content, and can it be added by Interra or the user? And the language.
Yes, I think, also. Thanks, Dipanshu. It's an interesting question. Yes, so by default, as you can see in the interface, we have a word list where you can give a set of words, or you can use some dictionary words as well. So it's completely customizable. So you can use dictionary words, or you can give a set of words where you want a detection. And let me remind you that it's a kind of multi-modal recognition, as I mentioned as part of the demo. So WINNOW will automatically identify the video, will identify if there is a corresponding audio, and if the audio also can match that. It will identify the closed caption or subtitles if it is there, and it will essentially scans in the images if there are text clues are available. It could be website, it could be labels in the objects, it could be other the hints that we detect. So we do every piece and bits of pieces which are available and send it to our ML model.
Thanks, Bibhas. The next question is on the support to detect explicit closed captions. So yes, strong language, be it foul or explicit, that detection works on both spoken audio as well as the captions or subtitles. So that support is there. The next question is on the detection of themes, namely adult themes, crime, suicide, because these are part of the government classification examples. So yes, as we have covered in the demo, there are different schemes available for the different use cases that you have mentioned. For example, there is a scheme for explicit content, then violence, then maybe detecting alcohol, strong language. So these use cases can be covered using the various schemes that are already available in the solution, as Bibhas explained. Okay, so next question is, what duration of content would WINNOW require to be optimized in order to run the software in a real life scenario?
So I'll maybe let Shailesh from the R&D team to answer that.
Hello. Yeah, WINNOW is already a trained software, so you don't have to do any kind of training yourself. You just use the software as delivered to you. So there is no need for any training to be done in your facility. You just take the software and use it on your content. If you find any problems, report the problems to us. We'll make sure that those issues are resolved in the next version.
Sure. Thanks, Shailesh.
And Shailesh, how much is the minimum duration? That was one of the questions.
I mean, WINNOW can work on very small files as well as very large files. There is no training involved. Training is done by us. WINNOW can do classification for very small files like 15-second clips also. It can do classification for very large files like even 1-hour files, 2-hour files.
Thanks, Shailesh.
Sure. Then there is a next question for on the roadmap that is there a plan for building support for other languages? Namely, the example that has been taken here is Korean.
We are still figuring out our plans for it, and we will update on it later.
Thanks, Shailesh. Then the next question is, is WINNOW recognizing the factor in the image only by keywords, or does it also recognize based on similar images? So I think how the detection for the particular factor that has been mentioned to WINNOW that it has to be identified, how is the identification being done? So Shailesh, if you can please take that question.
WINNOW uses multiple factors in making any particular detection or classification. In this context, we have two different engines running. One is an object detection engine, and other is a visual text detection engine. So WINNOW may be able to identify a piece of a glass of wine through its visual appearance, as well as if there is some text on a bottle which says that it's a vodka brand, then WINNOW may pick up that also. So it's using multiple signals for making the classification. It's not that it is only based on the text appearing on screen.
Okay, thanks a lot, Shailesh. I think that also covers the next question that I have on screen, that if WINNOW can differentiate between more obscure objects, let's say there's a glass, so if we have to identify whether it contains liquor or whether it's just a glass of water. So as you mentioned, there are multiple factors that are taken into account, so it can be identified using those factors.
Yes.
The next question is on the capability of detecting the logos. So yes, as Vibhas just now showed, that there is a scheme for logo detection also. And the example that he showed where we uploaded the Nissan logo and the same detection was done. So logo detection is possible with WINNOW. Shailesh, then there's a question on the performance or the speed of the checks. So can you please share some highlights of how the performance is for the solution?
Sanjay, will you take that question?
Yeah, thanks. So currently WINNOW can classify files on 2 to 3 times slower than real time. Currently we are working on the performance speed of the classification, but currently it can classify files 2 to 3 times slower than the real time. This is for HD resolution. If the resolution is lower, then the speed would be faster.
Thanks, Sanjay. Then the next question, Vibhas, is that WINNOW, is it capable of speech to text detection?
Dipanshu, I think yes, as I mentioned as part of the demo, that in almost all the cases, we look for signals from multimodal. So that means apart from the video, we look for signals from the audio. As part of that processing, we analyze almost all the audio tracks that are available. And that also, if you want an output of speech to text in SRT format, WINNOW has an option where you can extract that text when you do that. So yes, we have the rich capability for speech to text detection as part of this.
Sure. And there's a question on whether it's an online tool or an offline, where basically does it need an internet connection? So no, it will not need an internet connection to run the schemes on your content.
So you can deploy it on-premise as well as in the cloud.
Sure.
If you're deploying it on-premise, it doesn't depend upon any internet connection. The models are pre-trained and they're right inside your infrastructure.
Thanks, Shailesh. In fact, that answers the next question also, that whether it can be deployed on cloud. So yes, as Shailesh mentioned just now, so it can be deployed both as an on-prem solution or in the cloud. The next question is on the scene change detection capability, whether WINNOW can identify scene changes.
Yes, WINNOW has to identify the scene changes because, as part of the classification, we need to identify the scenes and in fact, as I'm taking you through the interface, you can see that we have in the preview window, we have two buttons. One is the frame, which is going to show you individual frames, and the shorts. So if you take the mouse to the shorts, it's going to show you a particular scene where it is. So yes, we support it.
Thanks. And the next question is on the need for graphic cards, that whether a graphic card is mandatorily needed or can it run without a graphic card also?
It requires NVIDIA GPUs to run and give you the performance that you need. If you're not using GPU, you can't get the performance. It will be extremely slow on the CPU.
Okay, sure. Thanks, Dinesh.
I think there is another question, Shailesh, that if the other GPU like AMD or any other models is supported.
Right now, we are doing all our development against NVIDIA GPUs, but since it's based on TensorFlow, in principle, it can run on the technologies like TensorFlow processing units, the TPUs. But we have no immediate plans to support AMD or anything else.
Sure. And so, Bibas, the next question is on our WINNOW checker servers independent of Baten. So I think the checking capability of WINNOW will be independent of Baten, but as we mentioned in the beginning, that there are APIs available and integration with Baten is available. So both these solutions can work together, as Vibhas also mentioned in the initial slides, that once a job is submitted, so Baten as well as WINNOW can perform their specific tasks in parallel.
There's one point here. Basically,
Sure.
The hardware that you need for Baten is very different from the hardware that you need for WINNOW.
Right.
Baten doesn't require any GPUs, and WINNOW does require GPUs. So it's better to have. It's actually better to have them installed as separate systems.
Sure. Okay, and then the next is on the training. I think it's that can we train WINNOW modules or schemes with our own content once it is deployed in our environment.
There are a few things where you can use your own content. For example, in the logo detection, you provide the logos that you want to detect for. In the face detection, you provide the faces of the celebrities for which you want to detect. But in most of the cases, we provide you the trained models. There is no training on-site involved. If there is something that you would like us to detect, we will work with you to make sure that the next version has that capability.
Sure, Shailesh. The next question is on licensing. So how the licensing is working is based on the number of files that you want in parallel to be processed by WINNOW. Plus, then there's a dependency on what all schemes you want the solution to identify, whether explicit, strong language, or violence. So these will also affect the eventual licensing as well as the pricing. But the further details on pricing we can definitely take once we are finished with the webinar, and I'll definitely reach out for all the pricing related questions. Okay. So I think since it's almost time, although there are still some questions, but we can definitely try to reach out to everyone with all the answers to the questions, and because there are still some unanswered questions. So thanks a lot, everyone, for attending the webinar, and thanks a lot, Vibhas, for the session, as well as Sanjay and Shailesh for taking the questions. And just to mention that we are still left with one more webinar in this series, which is on Friday for the offline analysis tool Vega. So please try to attend that also. Once again, thanks a lot, everyone, for attending.